Hi, guys. I hope you can hear me out there and see me. Um, been a busy day. Had quite a few things going on left and right. I'm going to have to cut this short tonight and make it just an hour. I've got some other things going on, but I wanted to drop in and say hey to everybody. Ugh. Is everybody? Hello, Gordon. Hello, Justin. Whoops, sorry. Y'all done with your Christmas shopping yet? I got just about everything done on that article, but just trying to get those last little things. Hello, Stephen. How you doing? Garen, good evening. Red Sorghum, good evening. It's warming up. It's in the 50s out there right now. I didn't really want to fire up the fireplace, but the house is a little chilly. So I had to go lay the fire and get it going. Make sure everything was good with it. So Kodak, good evening. Keep all three. Hello. Daryl. Daryl. Okay. Backcountry, good evening. Oh, Herbert, going to a knife show. Cool. Yeah, Stephen, I hear you. That's one of the things about working for the state and stuff. You get one payday. They don't care what the other, you got to set your universe around that one payday. Terry, good evening. Brett, good evening. Diane, your haversack was shipped the other day. You should have it tomorrow or Saturday if you ain't got it already. For those that have ordered out of the last run, I've shipped out all just the haversacks. What I've got now is the haversacks where I'm waiting for the rucksacks show up. The rucksacks were shipped out last Friday night and ain't showed up yet, but they're in transit. It just takes forever to get out of West Virginia. But as soon as it gets in, I've already got all the bags. I will get them in the mail to you immediately. And as my video said earlier today, I'm starting the next run now. As soon as I ship one, I do the next one. So we're starting that. Michelangelo, good evening. To Ohio, 2020. Hello. Lonnie, good evening to Western Pennsylvania. Red Sorghum, if the house is chilly, it's perfect time to make chili. You got a good point there. Gray Wolf, good evening from the great frozen north. Good, Diane. Glad you got it. Salty Dog Outdoors, good evening. How you doing, sir? Gerald Jones, hello. John Moore, good evening. Gerald, good evening to you too. Let's see. Tim Lacey, good evening. Briar Smoke, hello to Sarah, Nevada. Gerard, hello there. Good. James P., you made it. Wayne Roberts, good evening. Yeah, I am hip deep in prototyping and doing all kinds of stuff. And I just got a down top quilt from One Wind that says 0 to negative 20 degrees is what they're calling it. These are $300 a piece, guys. Top quilt that, if it's true, it'll be as warm as my mountain bag that I've got, the 49 mountain bag, but weigh a fraction of it. So I'm going to be doing a overnighter for my December here very, very shortly and give y'all feedback on it. I'll have a video out on it. And they send it with a thing that's got a strap hookup. So if you want to use it on the ground for a sleep pad, the sleeves like thing goes over your sleep pad and it's got anchor points to hook to the top quilt so you don't walk out from under it. And I'll give that a try as well. I might try that with a new little small poncho shelter I got and do an overnight with that, and then I'll try it in next month in the cold time. We're talking about doing a winter camp for some teaching and training. A couple of friends want to get together and do that, so we'll see how that works out. If so, I'll give y'all feedback on that. Speaking of, something that slapped me upside the head the other day. I've got that One Wind hot tent and the wood stove to go in it, right? I got a buddy heater. Never dawned on me of combining the buddy heater with that thing. It has a smoke flap, so you got to get a wood stove. That's just old rendezvousing coming back to haunt me, and it never dawned on me. You dummy, you got a buddy heater. Put that in there. You reach in and warm up instead of having to stoke the fire up. Why didn't I think of that? You know, I'm old and gray, and hair is a little gray too. So. Yes, Outback. The haversack is en route to Australia right now. It was shipped on Tuesday. So it is on the way to you. Hello, Common Sense Karen. Ground Fog, hello. Jonathan Gabriel, good evening to Ohio. Yeah, Jared, that's the thing. I grew up in some Depression era houses. I mean, the house that I grew up in was built in 1903, 1904, and was recycled lumber from a place they were tearing down to build it. And so we had wood stoves and all like that until my father married my mom, and then he added on another 2 rooms to the back. It's only a 4-room house, and then turned that into a 6-room house, and turned what had been the kitchen into a bedroom and built a new kitchen is what it done. And so we didn't have a wood stove or a fireplace anymore. So whenever I came on the picture as a little boy, they were all sealed up. But many of my family members had fireplaces still and vehemently refused anything but fireplaces. And so they wouldn't even have a little bathroom electric heater. They just were old and set in their ways and knew what they were doing. And so whenever I got a tent that has a jack in it to put in a stovepipe, your brain goes, you have to have a wood stove. Never dawned on me, you done got a buddy heater, dummy. And it's okay to put in something like that. And you just, Yeah, gray hair gets in the way of the gray matter. I agree with that. Oh, cool, Terry. Good luck. Got you some summer sausage. Good. James Singer. Good evening. I'm thinking about using Gordon. I'm thinking about using a kayak bag instead of a haversack. Do you know of any advantage or disadvantages? Well, it's going to just depend on your application. Bottom line, if you're going kayaking, then one of the dry kayak bags would probably be an advantage, would it? Although the Blackbird is very water resistant, you can't scuba dive with it, but it will take a dunking and keep your stuff relatively dry. Plenty of splash won't bother it at all. But where a true kayak bag that seals up might be the way to go. It's what you're doing and how you're applying it. There is no wrong way for you. Just because to me, this is the best bag I've ever had in my life, period. But then I spent 30 years coming up with it up here of fixing all my problems that I encountered. But someone, let's say in the desert Southwest, might have a better take, or someone's in the Pacific Northwest that does a lot of kayaking and canoeing. They might have something they want to do with it, a slightly different. So do you, it's just whatever, each one will have an advantage and disadvantage depending on the application. Okay, Brett, the secret to a fireplace. One, you need an air source there at the fireplace to let outside air come into the fireplace. And a lot of people don't get this. It sounds counterproductive, But usually, like mine, you've got the actual fireplace, and then about 18 inches out, there's a air pipe that comes out, and there's a grate over it, and that goes directly to the outside. You have to feed fresh air. If you don't have that, then the suction of that heat going up the chimney is just going to suck air at every opening around that house. In every room, every little pinhole is going to suck air in because it's a vacuum. See, as that heat's rising up, it's sucking air out of the house, so it sucks cold air in everywhere. If you'll provide it with a direct line of air, it stops doing that, and the house gets warmer that way. The trick that I'm doing is I lay my fire, I get it going, and I usually have something real. You remember old Christmas tinsel? I used to have some of that I'd put up, thumbtack it or whatever, and hold it, and I'd wait till I could see it start moving, and that would tell me that I've got a good column of heat coming up out of the fireplace going up the ceiling. And then over here in this corner, I've got a box fan angled up to go up on low and just kind of sweep across that. That'll start a convective current around the room up there because heat's going to rise. Your feet are freezing and your head's burning up because it does like that. It comes down. Say, well, you're at the ground level. You're at the very end of it. But if I put that circulation like that, where that air moves around and I get the walls warm and the ceiling warm, the house is warm. With then a relatively small fire can do the job. But before you had to have a big bohunking fire to try to project the heat, because yeah, you're going to lose about 60 to 80% of your heat going up that chimney. And the flue, or the dampener, you should close it just a little, and you'll know the difference. Here's the easy way to do it: get a bright flashlight and turn the other lights out in the house, and close it just a little, and you'll feel more heat. Okay. I mean, just a little, and then let it go for a minute or two, and then get up there and turn the flashlight on. Like, here's the opening where here's the opening. Get like here and shine a bright beam and see if you see little wisps of smoke. If you do, you got too close. There's a balance point of the volume going out versus that. So you're reflecting more heat into the room, but not sending smoke. Okay. And so you've got to adjust where there's no smoke coming out. There's still just a little bit of a vacuum going in, but more projected heat is coming out. It's a science. It really is. And my hat's off to a lot of them old timers in coal country that they knew how to run a stove or run a fireplace like a nuclear engineer running a reactor. They could heat houses. They could keep everything going. I was very lucky to get to know some of them and get a few questions in before they were gone around my family and all. Leon, good evening to Michigan. Snapper, good evening. Doing well, sir. Hope you're doing well too. But back to running a fireplace. Taking the tinsel, or you can also just take a candle that's got a long flame and sit the candle someplace and watch the flame. I'll tell you the air current, right? So like I've got a great big den. It's a dining room, kitchen, den, all one huge room, like a 18 by 20 room. Think like a 3-car garage, but that's the middle of the house. And so, I got a great big hearth, which is brick. So once that wall gets warm, it's radiating heat out into the room. See? And so I sat in there the other night with the wife and took tinsel and put it in places around the room and figured out exactly the position of the fan and get it going slow. And then 20 minutes later on the far side of the room, once that tinsel that was hanging over the light started. So I knew I'm getting convective current. You see, I get that slow little current going around the room so that heat is slowly spreading and warming the whole ceiling and warming the whole room. And it's technical. Oh, Bill Van, good. You tried putting them in the freezer and freezing them first? That old trick we used to do to make the wax burn more evenly and burn longer. Okay, Justin, you're saying your fireplaces just have the tube. Okay. Those you want, um, you want to stand the wood up on the back wall like half of a teepee fire. Okay. Get you a base of coals going at the bottom, and then you stand the wood like that up against it. So the heat comes up. So this long surface gets to burning. That produces more flame and therefore telegraphs more heat out into the room. See? And so you just have to lean it on the back wall instead of using fire dogs. That's an old English style. That's where they did back in the day. They just take big pieces of wood like and just sit it and lean it against it. And so you got a big bed of coals and they kept adding more in front of it. Well, that brought the bed of coals out toward the front more. So you had to be kind of mindful of pushing everything back against that wall. But once that wall got hot and the wall got warm, it would radiate heat and you would be able to heat a house with it. A lot of times that was our basic idea, was the houses were not well sealed up. And so there was always a draft of air coming in or something. And what they would consider warm, we would not. So. Diane, yes, we're going to be doing that. In fact, we were going to be doing it this week, but last week, but his grandkids got sick. And I'm going to be going to see him Sunday. And we're going to shoot some video. And we had talked about, if weather's permitting, we're going to take our Thule to Chase and go out and shoot shot in it a little bit, probably out on his land. We might even sneak around for a squirrel or two. We'll see. Mm. Yeah, Bill Van, that cold did help. I know, Snapper, how difficult that is. There's an old saying in my family: where there's a will, there's a relative, and there's a bureaucrat. And there are more details than you would ever thought come out of the woodwork of power companies and gas companies and insurance providers and all kinds of stuff. When a family member passes away like that, they'll be bugging you for months of details you didn't even know, you know, that had to be done. I had to go through a lot of that. Was a lot of my family was older when I was born, so I got to see a lot of funerals and a lot of it. So I had a little better idea than the average bear. But it's a daunting task having to settle all the details, and there will always be somebody showing up going, "Oh, but wait a minute, yeah, right, JB." That's the thing with cold stuff. Well, I run a fireplace like I do a campfire. Okay. And so we're heating everything but the bedroom with wood. And so what we're doing is I go about 5:30, 6 o'clock, depending on the temperature, I'll start the fire in the fireplace. And then I'll go get the wife, she gets off at 6. And it's safe to leave it. We've got it. It's nothing but concrete and brick, and everything's clear up top. There's nothing, you know. So it's one of the things where it was set up from the ground up to be safe, left alone. And so I get it going, and that warms up everything. And then we run it till about 11 or 12 at night, and that's enough to keep the chill off the air. So when you come out in the morning, out of the bedroom, out into the main living area, if it's in the 30s outside, it's maybe 62, 63 in the kitchen, which is fine. And I can walk out, and I'll have coals because I use I have stacks of dry wood and green wood and halfway between wood. And so if we're wanting to keep the fire going, because tomorrow's going to be cold, the highs are going to be in the 40s, the last thing I'll do tonight is I'll throw a couple of big pieces of green wood on top. Well, that'll cook all night. And when you come out in the morning, you'll have like a half of a hat full of hot coals still sitting there. I'll throw tinder back on top of it, put my dry wood cross on top of it, fire it right back up, and got the heat going again. And so I won't have to relight that fire for a week or 2 weeks. I'll just keep adding to it and keep it going. Thank you, Outback. Merry Christmas to you too. Good night to you. Stephen in the Dream. Good evening, sir. Yes, Snapper. The family is rife with tales of where everything seemed to be in order, and then 3, 6, 8 months, whatever, after the family member passed, a bill shows up. Somebody shows up claiming that 40 acres over yonder they can now get for free because of it was always some BS, one step after the other. And we had a family member that when they went, it was a real pain in the butt. The whole family had to come together to try to settle it and wanted to get their toes in it real quick. So, yeah. Old timer's dilemma. Do I run to the outhouse or start the fire first? That's reason to keep an extra bucket by the fireplace. Oh, Bear's in the house. Good evening, sir. And good evening to the grandbabies if they in the house too. Uncle Blackie says hello. Blackie Diane wants us to go shoot our flintlocks. You want to go do a Bears Old Ways? We'll go load them up with shot and walk around the federal road, see if we can grab a squirrel or two. And when that falls through, then we'll go down to the shooting range and shoot flint a little bit. Oh, yeah. HOA. Yeah, dude. Ooh, I feel for you, Snapper. I really do. They are, forget it. I don't care if it's the prettiest house I've ever seen. They only want $1 for it. You know, if a housing authority is any way connected to it, no. Goodbye. No, thank you. And health providers, the same way. These big, huge health plans, all the above. Gordon, it would work as long as it's a low cot, because the walls taper in so quickly. So you couldn't put like a army cot in there. You wouldn't have room. But like that really low, like El Tigris has got one that's about that high. You can set it up low or put the long legs on it. So it's about that high. You can probably do that with it. Good, Bear. We'll do that. John Loudermilk, Blackie, what's the best bait for Geneva State Lake? In that water, I'd pick a frog or something that looks like frogs, tadpoles, lizards, something like that. That lake is not very deep, and it's got a lot of moss out there in the middle. You got to go out in the deep. If you sit there and just watch the locals where they fish, they'll hit the boat landing and they take off and go up in that far corner to the right, and then they'll go on that far bank and work down that far bank. Hardly anybody stays on this side unless they circle back. And so that indicates to me that's predominantly, plus down up by the dam where it gets deeper would probably be a good place. And I would look at frogs, salamander type lures, things like that, or even a mouse. A mouse would be really good on a fly rod. Ooh, gray wolf. How do you get a convex edge without a slack belt? I have never done it on a belt. I've only done it with a file. I've just never done it. I know people that do, that use a belt grinder or something like that to do it. But I've always sharpened axes and stuff by file. So I'm sorry I don't have a real good answer for you. Yeah, Snapper, like I said, if there's a will, there's a relative and a bureaucrat. Every time. Grandma hadn't seen anybody in 5 years. Nobody cares anything. She croaks, and by God, you got third cousins showing up talking about how they loved her and never went a day without talking to her. Yeah. And you got the phone bills proof. She ain't called nobody. Donald, Blackie, do you plan on doing anything about a crossbow? Not at this time. I have played with them, but I have not gone in depth into them. Peace. Why is your name Blackie? My name is Blackie because when I was a little boy, part of my name is a Native American name, which means raven or ravens, crows, right? And my grandfather on my mother's side called me Little Blackbird when I was a baby, instead of calling me that. And he just called me Little Blackbird. Well, that got shortened down from Blackbird to Blackie by the time I was 3. And so I've been called Blackie, ever since. It's one of my names. I got a lot of names. I got one of them names that's that long. And so, but that's my name, Blackie Thomas. Blackie is actually a name. A lot of people don't believe that. But if you go look up the movie Failsafe, there's General Black, and they call him Blackie. And there's an old Spencer Tracy and Clark Gable movie about the earthquake in San Francisco. And the Clark Gable's character's name is Blackie. So it was actually a common name at one point. It's just not anymore. James P., that's true. Felix Zimmerman did do one on how to use a file and get the curve edge on it. Servant, I think they do have some sort of repair system. You just have to check them. I seem to recall years ago that there was a guy that I was associated around that was a competition shooter, the 3D target competition shooter. He shot a bear, and I think he talked about sending it in to have them tune it up or something. So check with Bear. They may have a repair area or a repair station you can send it to. Garen, I do not recall Hound Dog Man. Pierce, can you survive in tropical jungle? Alabama is a semi-tropical jungle. I'm sure a true jungle would be more intense, but I'm used to thick swamp, vine, all that stuff. So yeah, I could probably do pretty good. The jungles are normally good places for food. They're just very dense, hard to travel through. but they're very, food and supply rich once you learn the local providing ways. And since I already sleep in hammocks, getting up off the ground is no big problem. Oh boy, Gray Wolf, I understand hollow ground ain't gonna bend an edge, roll an edge, chip an edge. Thank you very much, Nick. Terry, okay. Well, maybe is the season over with you? You might still get lucky. Good evening, Dakota. Dakota's in the house. Tomorrow's video will be on making the lanyards with the square braid on it. That's Friday's Down and Dirty Woodcraft video. And I'm sending this one that I've already made up to Choir Boys so he can put it on his knife. We were down at doing a camp thing and I showed him mine, and he carries a pocket knife every day, and showed him the trick of this way you can't lose it out of your pocket. It'll slide out, but it ain't gonna fall off your belt because you hook that toggle over your belt. Wow, servant, good eye. You found that much ginseng, you did good. Randy, that's a good question. Could you shoe shine it? If you took the belt and glued it to like a old leather belt, like a wearing belt, and then wrap around, and this section in here's got the sandpaper, and do it like a shoe shine belt, could you do that? That might be a way, because we used to do something like that. There was a Sureform used to make a rasp that was a thin piece of metal and bent. I still got one around here somewhere. And it was for rounding over the edge of wood. You could take it just like that and round over wood. I don't see why we couldn't do it and get a convex edge on an axe with it. Washburn Billy, good evening. Terry, you done good. You already got a freezer full by now. Peace. What is the worst place to survive? The desert? That would be actually it'd probably be tundra. Because of all that tundra and ice and snow, frozen ground, no vegetation that you can hardly use, everything hibernates, hides, or is gone, would probably be the toughest place for me to survive, because I'm used to a environment rich in resources. But the deserts are kind of lean, but they actually do provide quite a bit of stuff once you know what you're looking at. And there are quite a few people that are desert rats that are real masters. And we talked about it at one point that I'm a woodsman. I live in the eastern woodlands of North America, and I'm in the very southern part of it, which means I'm on the edge of, I'm in actually semi-tropical jungle. Going down into Florida, it becomes even more so, just stuff. And so my skill sets are that way. But then you go not far over here and you got swampers. They live in swamp. They're used to bayous and stuff like that, like Louisiana Cajuns and stuff like the Seminoles down in Lake Okeechobee and etc. Then you go up in the mountains. You got mountain men who are thriving up there. You have plainsmen. Now, that's something you don't hear about anymore. But in the time of Western expansion, they talked a lot about plainsmen who had the skills to survive out there on the great grasslands, you know, where we go out there and look and it's wide open. It's like a cow pasture. You know, the minute you come over the horizon, an animal 7 miles away says human and takes off. You know, you got to have a different skill set. How do you build anything with no trees? They use sod. They dug in the ground. They made hogans, you know. And then there's desert rats that they thrive in the driest of deserts, knowing how to find their resources. And then going up in Alaska, northern Canada, you know, a herbivore who lives up there in extreme cold and tundra, and they know how to survive in that. It's different skill sets for where you're at. There is no one universal. Even the U.S. military recognized that, and they got different kinds of troops. We maintain 10th Mountain Division just to have a core of troops that understand how to survive and move in Arctic and cold and vertical conditions. Because when we got into Italy, we didn't have anybody that could climb mountains, and we were fighting in severe mountains. And so it was a learning process. A lot of guys got killed out of just sheer ignorance. And so we maintain that. So you got SEALs that can do scuba and stuff like that. You got special forces. You got all these different military type things to cover all these environments, including guys that are specially trained for desert fighting because it's a different world. You remember Bush Tucker Man, who worked for the Australian military, going around and talking to the Aborigines, trying to find various kinds of food and stuff like that, because if the Australia was ever invaded again, like it nearly was in World War II, the Australian military wanted a corps of people that could at least tell them what to eat, what to drink in the wilds of Australia, because it's such a big place and it's so barren. And you'd have to have individuals having survival skills. And so it's where you're at and what kind of terrain you're in and its skill sets. Should be. The MC2 should be fine. Yeah. But here's the thing to remember. Literally, the North Pole is moving. Kind of erratically at times. And so when even the military now tells you, if you're going to do anything with the compass, you go find out what it is today, because it can actually go back and forth a little bit. You go look at the path of the North Pole and it goes like this. You know, even though it's not going in a straight line, it's kind of wobbling a little bit. And when I was a kid in the 1980s, when I was learning map and compass military style, I was here in Alabama, I was on 0 degrees. Today it's 4 degrees. So always check. And the compass is good, but check what your declination is. And every couple of months, recheck it to make sure it hadn't changed, if you're going to try to do any kind of long range travel with one. Jennifer, good evening. Frankie, good evening. Stacy, good evening. Stacy, ever come to West Virginia? I have been up there a few times. I haven't been up there lately, but a couple people going to be having gatherings and stuff up there. And I don't know about this coming year, but I may come up there. I was in Ohio, in lower Ohio at Union Grove first week of October. Not exactly West Virginia, but you get my idea, up in that neck of the woods. It seems like every time I turn around, I got to go to Ohio or something like that. But I do come up into that neck of the woods every so often. And hopefully I'll be doing more of it in the coming year. Snapper, yeah. If you had been cold, you were in the wrong unit. It's like my mentor, Grouch, who was in Force Recon, all these elite things. And he'll tell you in a heartbeat, you know, he'll jump out of planes, he'll do all this scuba dive, all that doesn't bother him. climbing on a rock face scared the crap out of him. And so they did in the training, they had you climb some mountain, and you got to spend the night. So you climb up as far as you can, and then you just piton in and, rig up your thing and your hammock and go to sleep, hanging on the side of that cliff. And he said it wasn't hard in the morning for them to figure out. They're scanning up, counting heads, making sure that everybody's still on the side of the mountain. And he said you'd have a guy on his hammock, and he had like 3 pitons out. He said, "Here's McGowan with 18 pitons out." He wasn't going to fall, by God. He said, "If I go, a large part of this mountain is going with me." Washburn Billy, very true. Sharp knife is what you got to have for when you're butchering game. Sharp knife is the best thing you ever had in the world. And when you got a dull one, you will cuss the whole day. Tiso, well, what's the idea about using a colostomy bag as a means of temporary water bladder? Should work well, as long as they're sterile, which they should be, being a medical type thing. And but the question is, this is designed as a catch bag. I'm sure that nothing there would be toxic. But remember, it's a catch bag. Putting water into it, will it taint the water? I know nothing's ever been in it, but I'm talking about the plastic itself. The material was not designed to be food safe. It's designed to be a catch bag for stinky stuff. And so it may impart something to the water. So, you might want to think on that. The Creaky Camper, your thoughts on the MC2 Sunto? The Sunto compasses are good compasses. I have held and played with an MC2, but I have not done any in-depth with it, other than just, somebody else was using one, let me play with it a few minutes. But Suntos are good compasses. So that's about as honest I can be about it. Yeah, John, Ohio loves to get Blackie up there. For several years, I was going up there either for the Pathfinder gatherings, and then it was the go to see Dan Lutz. Now I'm going up to see James Bender and do classes, so it adds up. Snapper, the funny thing is one of my stepbrothers enlisted in the Marine Corps and told him, I want to volunteer for McMurdo. I want to see snow. I'm an Alabama boy. I want to see snow, So where did they send him? Honolulu, Hawaii. And he was on board ship, and it's one of them ships that's kind of stationed there. It's not a Mediterranean or whatever. It's one of those big, egghead ships that's intelligence and stuff like that. And so when he was complaining to his sergeant, he said, I signed up. I wanted to see snow. He said, follow me. And he had him walk out on the deck and he pointed to the top of the volcano and said, see snow? He never got to go anyplace cold in his 15 years in the Marine Corps. He was always in someplace hot, dry, or wet. He was never anyplace cold. Okay, Santiago. 20 grains of black powder for a starting load, target load. Yeah, go from there and play around. Somewhere between 20 and 35 is where you're going to find the sweet spot, and the groups will shrink up. For hunting, that's just fine, unless you're trying to take something big like hog, in which case fills the chamber up. You want maximum penetration. So rough rule of thumb is find the accurate load, which is going to be somewhere between 20 and 35. Just varies by gun to gun. Find out what that is, and that will become your general purpose hunting for small game, dog size and smaller game. Yeah, it does just fine. If you're trying to shoot bigger, I recommend the Kerr bullet, and then I would recommend fill it up as much powder can get underneath and get as much horsepower as you can, because you need penetration then. Peace, where your ancestors came from. I am part Native American Cherokee, and the other half is Scottish. We came from the Great Glen of Scotland. We were part of Clan Hatton, which is called Clan Chatton. We'd say Chatton, but the C is silent, Clan Hatton. And the Great Glen of Scotland, we were Highlander. And the name Mac Thomas was the clan family name. And my particular family line got here in 1736 into Darren, Georgia. We had been brought in as part of the indentured slaves to be develop and create the colony of Georgia. And he was a master of horse, which meant he raised horses and then sold them to the crown, or worked making horses. But that's how my family got here in the 1700s from Scotland. My native side was already here. Donald, Blackie, how important is a tri-stick? A tri-stick is a great way to practice all the carving skills when you can't be out there. So I think it is an important thing if you haven't got a lot of experience with it. It's just a way to train the hands and knife control and stuff like that. Now, what we would do to start out little ones is we get bars of soap. Like you used to get them big old blocks, like for $1, you get 5 bars or something. Super cheap soap. And we'd sit and carve that, and that way the chips you'd throw in the thing and put it beside the sink, add a little water, and have some soft soap. But any kind of hand training, because it's a hand-eye coordination, and you have to physically do it. And so that's where the tri-stick comes in, is teaching you to do these primary primary cuts in a certain way, in a timely manner. You should be able to do that, each one of those, in about a minute and a half, something like that. You at the beginning, you're struggling with it. By the end of it, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just whittle it off. And so it is important if you haven't had a lot of hands experience. On the other hand, if you have had a lot of experience, it's not something that you have to do. Okay. Washburn Billy, I'm sure, like I said, a lot of those plastics, what's the job of the plastic? It's a catch bag. So it, by definition, going to be sterile, but it's also by definition probably not going to be food safe. And I wonder what might leach into the water by the material. See? Charles Martin, how much desert camping have you done? Very little. I've camped a little bit in West Texas, and that's been about it. Yeah, Bear. 2 more visits to Ohio, and I can apply for citizenship. Right. Yeah, Bear. You need to ride up there with me next time. Snapper, yeah. You say, I don't care as long as it's warm. Of course, you're going to Alaska. Oh, cool, B. I'm going to be at the gathering, the Pathfinder gathering, in this coming year, where they're combining it with the boot camp, I believe it is. I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. But I was asked to do a couple of classes. I think I got 3 or 4 classes. And so I'll be there at it. I'll be barking with Trinity when I'm not doing my classes, doing her vending. Besides that, I'll be doing some teaching. If you get there, come up and say hey. Charles, I hear you. That's one of the things out in that neck of the woods is it's so, you don't have many big trees and stuff. But then again, a pair of walking sticks can be staked out to act as a ridge, just depending. Yes, never. Well, what did you do to deserve going to Alaska is the question. Peace. Best survivor you recommend? Ooh, best survivor. Oh, best YouTube channel that I recommend. There's a lot out there. Of course, you got Dave Canterbury's got a lot of great content on his. You got oh boy, who else? Do 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 do. I'm having a gray moment. Oh, David West channel. If you want to learn about primitive fire, David West channel. That guy is an expert on it. He's not a bushcrafter or woodscrafter. He's just a fire enthusiast. And so he makes all kinds of fire with all kinds of different methods. Really worth it. Just go blitz through his stuff, and it's a great training aid. Uh, Reading his, and of course you got Sean Kelly. You got Coal Cracker. You've got oh my God, I think I watched like 8 or 10. To be honest, but a lot they're just what's the topic. I enjoy all of them. Some of them stuff that I enjoy, some of it's like, oh, I understand that. And some of it, you always learn from everybody. Don't ever assume that I know more than that person, because trust me, they'll show you something you've never seen or heard of, or a different way to do something. Sometimes it's how not to do something. But anybody can learn from anybody else if you just keep an open mind and keep looking. Stacy, good night. Thanks for coming in. Randy T. On cap and ball, do you keep the balls out at the end of the cylinder? If so, do you use a filler or a felt wad as the gap between the powder? I don't. I just press it all the way down. The only time I got it all the way to the top is whenever I'm filling it all the way to the top of the chamber. Okay, that tells me that company's on the way. Well, we did get almost an hour out of it. It being the holidays, I got an old school friend showing up that's come in to visit his grandmother and said he's going to swing by about 8. So we got an hour out of it. I'm going to have to get off, guys. Corporal's Corner, correct, Sean Kelly. James Bender, of course. Frankie, thank you very much. Okay, here's everybody's homework for next weekend, because that's got me thinking. Tiny Titan, I'm sorry, dear. I got friends coming over, but we'll be back on next week. Everybody come up with 5 channels that you like to follow, whoever it is. This isn't going to be a right or wrong thing, but come up with 5 channels. And next week, everybody put them in the comments so we get an idea, because there's probably some channels I've never heard of. And let's spread the love and the knowledge around a little bit, because there's lots and lots of guys and lots of gals that's got really, really good content out there. And we need to kind of share and pull them together. All right, guys. Y'all be safe. Thank you very much. And we'll do it again next week. Till then, safe journeys. Take care, guys.